Martinez still hasn't worked out the secret of a fast start. But, gents, Daniel Harris and Chris Graham with me. One team that has a Fulham without Clint Dempsey yesterday, Dan, win 5-0 at home. What did you make of that performance? And, of course, what did you make of the opponent's performance as well?
Fulham have got some really good players, like people like Dembele and Ruiz are not only really excellent players, but players I would actually pay some money to watch. And Martin Jol, I think we've seen before, we saw it at Tottenham, he knows what he's doing. I mean, most of the good players at Spurs were bought by Martin Jol. And similarly, we're seeing it now. I think Petric is an interesting signing because he's someone who's worked with Jol before at Hamburg, and he's 30 years old, so he's the finished article. So he's not someone who you buy, you watch, you hope they get better, you hope they take to it. Yeah. And I think we almost saw it with when Everton signed Jelavic also. When you're signing these strikers who are finished articles, they might not have been the best players around, but in the Premier League you get a lot of chances, and he's playing with players who are going to supply him with good chances. So I wasn't that surprised to see them do well, but I worry for Norwich. You worry for Norwich. Chris Hughton's returned to the Premier League. Is that reflected in the odds, Chris?
Well, Norwich are going favourites for relegation now. Even money now. They were third or fourth in the list. Favourites now, even money to go down. So we are worrying times, and I think it's a disastrous start for the club, and tough times ahead, I would say, for the Carrow Road club.
What do we assess Clint Dempsey's future? He didn't play yesterday. Martin Jol said afterwards, "I still want him to stay." I think he refused to play the American yesterday. But I mean, what do you think? 18 goals last season. Is it a case of moving on, get a good check for him?
He's a good player. I'm actually relatively surprised by Liverpool's interest because he didn't particularly strike me as a Brendan Rodgers player. He's more an end product player rather than a keep passing the ball kind.
Yeah.
But you can see why he would like to go to Fulham if he's got the opportunity to. Why he would go to Liverpool if he could, because ultimately Liverpool still have more cachet than Fulham, and he's not young. So this is really his last opportunity to play in that kind of a team. But at the same time, Fulham are a better team than Liverpool are now, for my money, and by the time Liverpool are ready to be better, Clint Dempsey will be getting shoved towards the exit door. So it's a tricky one. But to go back to Norwich just for a minute, because I think if we look at Norwich and Swansea as two teams who came up, did well, exceeded expectations, but have both lost their managers.
Yeah.
I think Swansea might find it easier because although they've lost Joe Allen, they had a set way of playing. Brendan Rodgers would pick roughly the same 11 players every week, and they'd play in almost identical way.
We know how Laudrup wants to play football as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Whereas Norwich, the difference with Norwich is that what Paul Lambert did that was so clever was that he rotated his players and would pick a team depending on who he thought was in form or who he thought was suitable for a particular opponent, and that takes more managerial skill than what you would necessarily have to do with a team that's already been put together, which is what there is at Swansea.